the AI landscape and strategic imperative. Welcome. Over the next session, we are going to do something deceptively simple. We are going to get honest about where artificial intelligence actually sits in your organization today and where it needs to sit tomorrow. This is chapter 1 of the Executive AI Playbook, and it carries the title, The AI Landscape and Strategic Imperative. I chose that word, imperative, deliberately. Not opportunity, not trend, imperative. By the end of this chapter, you will understand what AI actually is as a layered set of capabilities rather than a single product. You will see the 3 structural shifts that make this moment different from every technology wave before it. And you will have a practical test for deciding what to hand to AI and what to keep on your own desk. Let us begin not with the technology but with a map of it. What this chapter covers. Here is how the session is organized. 3 moves. First, the 7-layer AI capability stack, because the single most common executive mistake is treating AI as one thing, one tool, one decision. It is not. It is a stack, and you are already standing on part of it. Second, the 3 pivot points of generative AI, the structural reasons this era behaves differently and demands a different leadership response. And third, the strategic imperative itself, why the ability to direct AI precisely, what we will call prompt engineering, has quietly become a core executive competency rather than a technical specialism. Each section ends with a short exercise you will complete for your own organization, so you leave with a worksheet, not just notes. Learning objectives. Let me be explicit about what you should be able to do when we finish, because I want you to hold me to it. 5 things. 1. Distinguish between the 7 levels of AI capability, so the word AI stops being a blur. 2. Identify where your organization already uses AI, and you may be surprised how often the answer is in more places than we realized. 3. Spot the shift that matters most right now, the move from chatbots that answer to agents that act. 4. Articulate the 3 structural shifts of generative AI and, crucially, the leadership response each one demands. And 5. Apply a delegation test and a competency map to your own work. If you can do those 5 things, this session has paid for itself. Section 1. The 7-layer AI capability stack. So let us start with the map. There is one idea I want you to take from this entire first section, and it is printed right here. AI is not a single tool, it is a layered ecosystem. Hold that thought as we climb the stack. The 7-layer AI capability stack. This is the spine of the chapter. Read it from the bottom up, because that is the order in which the world built it. Layer 1, classical or symbolic AI, rule engines. The if this then that logic that still runs inside loan approval and compliance systems. Legacy, niche, but very much alive. Layer 2, machine learning, and layer 3, neural networks. These are foundational. They quietly power your lead scoring, your recommendations, your forecasting. Layer 4, deep learning, mature and embedded, the engine behind fraud detection and image recognition. Layer 5, generative AI, the layer that broke into public consciousness. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. This is where most organizations are consciously experimenting today. Layer 6, agentic AI, systems that do not just answer but act. This is the frontier in pilot at the leading edge. And layer 7, adaptive, self-improving systems, the AGI horizon still theoretical. Here is the punchline at the bottom of the slide. Most enterprises already operate at layers 1 to 3 without realizing it. So the question is not whether you use AI, you do. The question is how far up the stack you are prepared to climb. Sample tools by layer. Let me make that concrete, because layers can feel abstract until you see the brand names. At layer 5, you have the tools everyone now recognizes: ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, Midjourney for images. Drop to layer 4 and you are in the engineer's world: TensorFlow, PyTorch. Layers 2 and 3, scikit-learn, XGBoost, AutoML, the workhorses your data team already uses. And layer 1, rules, clips, plain, business rules, engines. Notice the pattern. The lower layers no longer feel like AI. They have disappeared into your CRM, your fraud screens, your operational algorithms. That is the line at the foot of the slide, and it is the one I would underline. Layers 1 to 3 are already embedded in systems that predate the generative AI era. You have a foundation. Most leaders simply never mapped it. Layer 6, agentic AI systems. Now to the layer that should have your attention this year. Layer 6, agentic AI. The simplest way to understand an agent is 3 verbs. It plans, it uses tools, and it acts. A chatbot answers your question. An agent takes a goal, breaks it into steps, calls the systems it needs, your calendar, your database, a vendor's website, and carries the task to completion, escalating to a human only when it hits an exception. The example in the book is a procurement agent. It researches vendors, drafts the comparison brief, and schedules the supplier calls end to end. And here is the strategic claim in the band at the bottom. In 2026, the biggest productivity gains are not coming from organizations using conversational AI well. They are coming from organizations that have crossed from layer 5 to layer 6, from AI that talks to AI that does. Layer 6, agentic AI systems. Now to the layer that should have your attention this year. Layer 6, agentic AI. The simplest way to understand an agent is 3 verbs. It plans, it uses tools, and it acts. A chatbot answers your question. An agent takes a goal, breaks it into steps, calls the systems it needs, your calendar, your database, a vendor's website, and carries the task to completion, escalating to a human only when it hits an exception. The example in the book is a procurement agent. It researches vendors, drafts the comparison brief, and schedules the supplier calls end to end. And here is the strategic claim in the band at the bottom. In 2026, the biggest productivity gains are not coming from organizations using conversational AI well. They are coming from organizations that have crossed from layer 5 to layer 6, from AI that talks to AI that does. Layer 7, adaptive self-improving systems. 3 signatures, reinforcement learning agents that refine their own policy with every interaction. Models that retrain on fresh data on a fixed cadence, and pipelines that evaluate themselves and flag their own drift. The reason this matters to you now, before you will ever deploy it, is the warning in red at the bottom. The governance and oversight controls that make layers 1 through 6 safe do not automatically transfer to layer 7. A system that rewrites itself needs a different kind of supervision. So watch this horizon, but do not walk onto it without redesigning your controls. Key takeaways, the capability stack. Let us bank the 4 takeaways from the stack before we move on. First, AI is a stack of 7 capability layers, not a single technology. So, retire the question, should we use AI, and replace it with which layer for which problem. Second, layers 5 and 6, generative and agentic, are the live frontier for most enterprises. Third, each layer builds on the ones beneath it. Skip layers and you create capability gaps that surface later as failed pilots. And fourth, the one that tends to land hardest in the room. Your organization almost certainly already uses AI at several layers without recognizing it. Awareness is the first executive act. Exercise 1. Map your organization's AI usage. Now you do the work. This is your first worksheet. For each of the 7 layers, write down whether your organization uses AI there and name the specific tool or system. Be honest. I don't know is a legitimate and useful answer. Then answer the 2 questions at the bottom. Which layer is your highest current usage, and which layer should be your next investment priority? On the right are worked sample answers from a typical mid-sized firm. A procurement agent at layer 6, ChatGPT and Copilot at layer 5, fraud detection at layer 4, Salesforce Einstein at layer 2, a rules engine at layer 1, landing on highest usage layer 2, next priority layer 5. Section 2, the 3 Pivot points of generative AI. Pivot 1. Who can use AI? The user base changes. Pivot 2. What AI does to work? The nature of the impact changes. And pivot 3. How fast things change. The clock speed changes. Each of these demands a different response from you. Let us take them one at a time. Pivot 1. Who can use AI? Pivot 1. Who can use AI? The shift is from technical gatekeepers to the entire organization. What changed? AI projects used to require a dedicated data science team with specialist skills. Natural language interfaces have removed the coding barrier. If you can type a clear instruction, you can now use AI directly. That is liberating and slightly dangerous, which is why the leader's response on the right matters. Channel that grassroots energy through existing governance. Do not try to stop it. You cannot. Instead, pick 2 or 3 high impact use cases to scale formally and let everything else run as low risk experiments inside clear boundaries. Permission with guardrails, not prohibition. Pivot 2. What AI does to work. The shift is from replacing repetitive tasks to amplifying cognitive work. The old automation story was about manual tasks, data entry, sorting, processing. This is different. AI now assists with analysis, with creative work, with decision making itself, and it lets a less experienced person perform at a markedly higher level. So the leader's response is a reframe. Stop measuring this in labor saved and start measuring it in workforce amplified. Redesign your processes around human and AI collaboration rather than handoff, and invest continuously in capability building. The goal is not a smaller team, it is a more capable one. Pivot 3. How fast things change. The shift is from one-time implementation to continuous adaptation. We used to buy technology on multi-year cycles, install it, and enjoy a long, stable plateau. That plateau is gone. Model capabilities now improve in months, sometimes weeks, and the advantage flows to organizations that can test and iterate quickly. So the leader's response is structural. Build rapid experimentation, 5K infrastructure, streamline the path from test to deployment, and this one is easy to miss. Cultivate a network of technology partners rather than betting the house on a single vendor. In a fast moving field, optionality is a strategy. Key takeaways, the 3 pivots, 3 takeaways to bank. 1. Generative AI differs from previous technology in 3 structural ways. Accessibility, the nature of its impact and pace of change. 2. And this is the sentence I would most like you to remember from the whole section. The technology is the easy part. It is genuinely easy to access. The hard part, the part that separates winners from spectators, is the organizational change required to extract full value. And 3, each pivot needs a specific response. Let's adopt AI is not a strategy, it is a slogan. The strategy lives in the 3 distinct responses we just discussed. Exercise 2, rate your organization on each pivot second worksheet. Rate your organization 1 to 5 on each pivot. 1 is not started, 5 is fully adapted. On pivot 1, also estimate the percentage of your non-technical staff who actively use AI. On pivot 2, name one role where AI has changed what the person does, not merely how fast they do it. On pivot 3, be brutally honest about how long it takes you to get from experiment to production. Then identify your weakest pivot and commit to one action this quarter to address it. The sample answers on the right show a firm whose weakest link is pivot 3, 8 months to production, and whose chosen action is a 30-day fast-track approval for low-risk experiments. Section 3, the strategic imperative. We have mapped what AI is and why this moment is different. Now we make it personal, and we answer the question that is probably forming in your mind. Fine, but what does this actually require of me? The answer turns out to be a single learnable competency. That is the strategic imperative. Let me state the imperative in 2 parts. First, the scale of it. Large language models can now genuinely support strategy formulation, market analysis, financial modeling, organizational design, and stakeholder communication. That is not a marketing list. It is the actual executive workload. But notice the condition attached, and it is everything, only when directed with precision. Second, the lever, the capability that turns a generic AI interaction into a board-ready output is what we call prompt engineering. And here is why it belongs on an executive agenda rather than an IT one. It is a low-cost, high-impact investment in your own productivity. You do not need a budget line. You need a skill. The new executive interface, let me sharpen that. Generative AI is no longer a technology experiment confined to your IT department. It has become an operational capability. It directly shapes how you analyze markets, formulate strategy, communicate with stakeholders, and make decisions under uncertainty. Across every major consulting firm, delivery models have already been rebuilt around AI-augmented work. So the critical differentiator is no longer access. Every executive in this room has access. The differentiator is the ability to extract strategic grade output. The analogy at the foot of the slide is the one I would hold on to. The gap between a leader who uses AI casually and one who has mastered prompting is the gap between someone who Googles a market question and someone who commissions a rigorous competitive analysis. Same question, completely different answer. On the left, the vague prompt, tell me about our market. It yields exactly what you would expect. A generic overview, the sort of thing you could lift from a Wikipedia article. On the right, the same intent, precisely directed. As a strategy partner at a Big Four firm, conduct a competitive landscape analysis of the European fintech payments market, segmented B2B versus B2C for a $2 billion incumbent bank weighing build versus buy. Include market size, growth vectors, regulatory headwinds, and the top 5 disruptors by funding raised. Same tool, same 5 seconds to send, but this one yields a board-ready strategic brief. The difference is not the AI, the difference is the instruction. That is prompt engineering, and it is learnable. The AI delegation clarity framework. So how do you decide what to actually hand to AI? This is the delegation calculus. 4 questions to ask of any task on your desk. 1. Is the cost of an error tolerable, or does this decision sit close to the customer, the regulator, or the brand? 2. Is the input data structured enough that AI can reason over it without fabricating? 3. Is the output verifiable? Can a human check it in a few minutes? And 4. Does the task recur often enough to repay the time you will spend designing the prompt or workflow? Now read the rule at the bottom. Green on all 4, delegate it to AI. Red on the very first question. It stays with you, full stop. Some decisions are yours to own. And the middle ground, where most executive work actually lives, is augmentation. AI drafts, you decide. 5K, this framework refuses the lazy binary of AI does everything or AI does nothing. The AI ready leader competency map. If delegation is the decision, these 4 competencies are the muscles. The AI ready leader competency map. Prompt fluency. Asking AI for the right thing in the right form, the skill we just demonstrated. Output judgment, the trained eye for what is excellent, what is merely adequate, and most important, what is quietly wrong, because a confident, well-formatted error is the real risk. Workflow design, the architect's instinct for stitching prompts, data, and review steps into a repeatable system rather than a one-off. And governance literacy, the ability to defend any AI-supported decision in front of a board, a regulator, or a customer. Note the honest line at the bottom. Most of us enter this decade strong in just one of the 4. That is fine. The work of the next part of the book is to build the other 3. Measured impact across the enterprise. Let me ground all of this in numbers because executives rightly ask, what is the return? These are the measured impacts reported across enterprise use. Strategic analysis, market scans, competitive intelligence, due diligence runs 50 to 60% faster. Board and stakeholder communications show a 65% quality improvement. Research, literature reviews, regulatory and technology scans accelerates by 3 to 5 times. Document consistency, when you enforce templates through structured prompting, exceeds 85%. And decision support, scenario, risk, and option evaluation cuts preparation time by 40%. Notice these are not moonshots. They are efficiency and quality gains across the ordinary executive workload. That is what makes the imperative an imperative. The gains are large, repeatable, and available now. The responsibility principle. I want to close on a principle, not a number, because everything we have discussed rests on it. AI amplifies judgment, it does not replace it. Every AI generated strategic output must still pass through the filter of your experience and your business context. The promise of this book is that you can learn to collaborate with AI at the speed of thought. But the discipline of this book is that you do so while maintaining the rigor that defines excellent management. Speed and rigor together, that is the whole game. In the next part, Think and Communicate, we move from why to how, the mechanics of directing AI well. Thank you.